Hi, this is episode number 39 of Gen X Amplified, and today I am chatting with Jeff Hilimire, co-founder and CEO of the mobile and innovation agency Dragon Army, where we talk about the power of inspiring happiness at work, effective leadership, and building a purpose-driven company. So, are you ready? Let's do it.
And I felt like I had a calling to do more with my skills than just make me and my family, more wealthy. So I landed on a personal purpose of having an outsized positive impact on the world.
Welcome to Gen X Amplified, where we bring you inspirational and entertaining conversations with successful Gen X leaders and entrepreneurs.
This is the show created just for you. The powerful generation between the boomers and millennials to help you amplify your story,
Maximize your impact,
and become Gen Exceptional in business and in life.
Now, here's your host, Adrion Porter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Gen X Amplified, the podcast and platform where it is our mission to help and empower Gen Xers, Gen X professionals to maximize our impact at work, in business, and in life. Thank you so much, as always, for being a part of this journey, for listening, subscribing, and sharing this podcast to your friends and family. So my guest today is the co-founder and CEO of Dragon Army, a mobile and innovation company that helps clients navigate today's connected landscape through the use of new innovations and technology. Now, prior to launching Dragon Army, he founded and sold two additional marketing agencies, Spunlogic and Engauge, all within a 10-year span. Now, he is also the co-founder and board chair of a nonprofit company called 48 in 48, where its mission is to build 48 nonprofit websites within 48 hours in cities across the world. That is so awesome. But just as important, if not more, he enjoys spending quality time with his wife, Emily, of 19 years, and their not one, not two, not three, not four, but five. That's right, I said it, 5 children. So everyone, please welcome my Gen Exceptional guest, Jeff Hilimire. Jeff, how's it going, man?
Oh, it's going so great. Thanks for that introduction. Yeah, that sounds like a lot, those 5 kids, doesn't it?
I know. I only have 2, and as I get up the numbers, I'm like, oh my God, you're more of my hero even before I start this conversation. But it is,
well, as you know, and just coming off Father's Day, it's the best thing you could possibly do. So
it is so true.
It's all great.
It is so true. So I am always very excited to chat with not only fellow proud Gen Xer, but also a fellow marketer as well. So this is going to be a great, probably geeky conversation, Jeff. Before we get into kind of the nuts and bolts of kind of what you're doing now, and especially I can't wait to unpack this nonprofit that you recently started, I'd like to talk briefly just about your personal and professional journey, if you don't mind, what you've done, your story, and how it led to you in your current career as the co-founder and CEO of this great agency, Dragon Army.
Yeah, sure, you bet. So I grew up here in Atlanta, and I ended up going to school at UNC Charlotte, where I got the chance to play tennis. And when I went to school, I didn't think I would be an entrepreneur. I definitely didn't think I'd be in marketing. I just wanted to play tennis. And then I fell in love with building websites. The web was new. This was like 96, 97. And my college roommate and I started building websites. And for really no good reason, we said, hey, let's start a company in our dorm room and see if we can get people to pay us to build these websites.
Wow.
And, from that point on, I was 21 when we started Spunlogic. I've been an entrepreneur ever since. So for 10 years, Raj and I built Spunlogic, got to about 75 people. We sold Spunlogic to a private equity group that was bringing together 3 agencies, ours being one, and creating a new entity called Engauge. And I was fortunate enough to become president of Engauge and help run that company for 5 years. And we sold Engauge to Publicis in 2013.
Wow.
And they merged our team. We had a little over 200 people, merged us with Moxie here in town.
That's right. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And then at that point, I started Dragon Army. And so I've had Dragon Army for about 4.5 years. And we've gone through lots of different pivots to get to where we are now. But we're approaching 50 people and having a lot of fun.
That is a great story. So when you started college, and this was when you were in college back in, you said 96, 97. And I remember that time, especially at the birth of the internet, not really the birth of the internet, but really the genesis of a lot of the internet as we know it today. I believe I was in business school at the time, and I remember like my favorite browser was Netscape.
Yep.
So I think it was 97. So when you went into college, did you want to be an entrepreneur, or it just kind of spun, pun intended, during that freshman, sophomore, junior year? I can't remember what year you said.
Yeah, no, it was not on my mind. So my dad had his own business, a vending company that I had worked with him in the summers, and a bunch of my uncles and family members had small businesses, but I never thought I would start a company. The first couple of years of college, I snoozed through any business oriented classes. It was just not, it was not on my radar. But yet at the same time, having grown up around, an entrepreneur and my father, it was sort of not foreign to me to go, you know what, Raj, why don't we start a business? So I think it was more that I fell in love with the web. So I went from obsessed with tennis for about 10 years of my life to then just falling in love with, to your point, this new internet, the web, and building websites. And so it was just like, well, if we're going to be doing this every waking hour that we weren't in class and that I wasn't on the tennis court, it would be cool if people would pay us to do it. And that was really it. Wow.
Now, are you born and raised in the Atlanta area, or where are you from?
I was born in Chicago, but we moved when I was 5. So grew up in Stone Mountain.
Stone Mountain, great, awesome. So that's really cool. So you started the company, Spunlogic, and then Engauge. You built Spunlogic up to 75 people, I believe you said.
That's correct.
And then you had Engauge, and then I do remember now the merger. I have a couple of friends that had worked at Moxie, and I'm very familiar with Moxie. I mean, that was a big acquisition at the time, and sounds like this genesis of this new company you wanted to start, Dragon Army. What was the basis of even the name, the agency, the idea of what you wanted to achieve with this new entity, Dragon Army?
Yeah, I knew that after Engauge, so at Engauge, I wasn't as much of an entrepreneur because there was a board, which I was on, and there was a leadership team, but I wasn't the CEO. And there was a private equity group that really controlled a lot of the decisions. So I had made the decision about halfway through Engauge that from now on, the only title I want is founder or co-founder. Wow. And so I knew I needed to start my next thing. And quite honestly, I wanted a shot to build a company using some of the experience that I'd had over the previous 15 years. When I started Spunlogic, I was a child. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing, and my partners were the same age. We didn't know what we were doing. So I wanted a shot to really build a company that had meaning and had a purpose, and yes, was built on culture, but was able to do good in the world and be something more positive than simply a way for me to, increase my bank account. And so Dragon Army, the name itself, my co-founder, Ryan Tuttle, that was the name that he really, right out of the gate, was like, what if we call it Dragon Army? And it's from his favorite book, Ender's Game. And the irony is I was like, I don't know, man, Dragon Army, are people going to respect that? And is that going to be something? And, I fought it a little bit, and then I got on board, and our name's probably one of our greatest assets because it's so recognizable. It's just so different. So, but it really, the name comes from, the meaning behind the name is to be creative problem solvers, to think outside the box. That's what happens in Ender's Game. And so it's a natural fit for the company that we've become, that we're looking at new technology. We're trying to help companies innovate, and we're always looking at things through a different angle than the industry normally would.
Well, that's really good. And I know that you're very big on purpose. And you just mentioned at the beginning, when you wanted to start a company, when you wanted to literally be the captain of the ship and have that CEO founder title, you just didn't want to build a typical company that was focused primarily or just on dollars and revenue. And so when I think about Dragon Army being this great innovation company, it's very interesting that the undercurrent of building that was to make sure the purpose was front and center. And so can you talk a little bit about like why was that so important to you as far as having a purpose-driven organization, not only to make change and impact with other companies, but also impact into the world?
Yeah, I went through a program in 2012 called Leadership Atlanta.
Okay.
And it fundamentally changed my life. I, for the first time, became really aware of the privilege that I was born with, and that is inherent and sort of baked into society. So, I used to think sort of like, I think most entrepreneurs that have some success, it's like, man, I worked really hard. I was in the dorm room and then in my parents' basement and then in the back of a fitness center. And and I worked a ton of hours and nobody would give me a loan. And so I had to rack up credit card and all these things like, yeah, I worked really hard. But going through Leadership Atlanta and realizing that, as just as a white male, those two things in America, everything is slanted in my direction. So yeah, you know what? I had parents that could put me in their basement, and I went to college where I could work out of the dorm room. I was able to get credit even though I couldn't get loans, and so I just felt like that I had a responsibility coming out of Leadership Atlanta. Where my eyes had been opened more to the advantages that I have and to how some people don't have those advantages and a lot of people don't. And I felt like I had a calling to do more with my skills than just make me and my family, more wealthy. So I landed on a personal purpose of having an outsized positive impact on the world. And outsized meaning, I'm an entrepreneur and I can build things and I can grow things. And why don't I use those talents to make a positive impact on the world? And so from that point, everything that I do, including Dragon Army and including 48 and 48, which you mentioned, everything is driving toward having an outsized positive impact on the world to try to give back in some way, shape, or form for the many blessings that I've just been naturally given because of who I am.
Wow, I love that story. So just kind of unpacking that a little bit more. Leadership Atlanta, you said 2012 is when you were part of that organization. Is that an annual event, or what exactly is Leadership Atlanta for my listeners who may not know?
Yep. It's each year, Leadership Atlanta is a program where 80 leaders in the city from all shapes and sizes, all different types of jobs and backgrounds come together. And it's an annual program where really you learn about the city of Atlanta, but you learn about your peer group. And, just for me, it was an awakening process. I think for some people got different things out of it, but it was transformational. It's so great. So it's almost like an MBA program in a way where you have your group and you get really tight with these folks. And then you sort of graduate. So we graduated in 2013.
Okay. Wow. And during that process, Jeff, you mentioned it changed your life. It allowed you to have, I guess, self-inventory of the privileges that you've been blessed with. And at the same time, really highlighting the fruits that you've enjoyed and how could you give back. And not a lot of people have those epiphanies and experiences. And I want to make sure my listeners really heard that, because to me, that is very powerful, because I think we do need more of that in the world. And it's very important for people to go through different experiences in life, to put them in situations where they have this, I guess, awakening or epiphany in your case, to say, hey, I've had great success. I come from a certain background that has allowed me certain things, but you know what? I am an entrepreneur, but how can I just not create a company that's just focused on the bottom line? And you mentioned something else too that I want to unpack and really underscore more, is that you decided on and defined, not just decided, you defined your purpose, a personal purpose. Because many people, when they think of purpose, they may think business, or they may think of something that's just so career driven, which is okay. But I just want to make sure I get this right. You said your purpose is to have an outsized positive impact on the world. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Not just a positive impact, but outsized. I love that.
Yeah, no, I think it works for me because it allows me to have a lens to where I say, okay, if I'm going to be a part of this, if I'm going to put my time towards this, if I'm going to invest in this, it needs to have a bigger impact than just my two hands.
Okay.
because I've been, I've been sort of blessed with this ability to grow things and to scale things. And I even look at it through my family. If there's sort of three buckets, one being family, one being work, and then one being just a general do good category, there's potentially nothing more important that I could do with my life than to take my 5 children and build empathetic, caring, passionate adults out of them and show them things and expose them to things that will let them. And then suddenly at, worst case, there's 5 more people in the world that understand their privilege and understand that they need to live in the community and to give back. So I can look at the lens of what nonprofits do I get involved with and how can I make a bigger impact than just a single individual, or if I'm starting something, is it going to have a positive impact on the world? Right. And so that's the lens that helps ground everything that I do, really.
This is so good. So I don't want to go forward without mentioning, I mentioned your wife, Emily, in the intro. So your 5 kids, what are their names and ages?
Yeah, so they go from 13 down to 6, and it's Zach, Drew, Caitlin, Hannah, and Kai.
Okay, Zach, Drew, what's the third one?
Caitlin, Hannah, and Kai. All
right, Hannah and Kai. Zach, Drew, Caitlin, Hannah, and Kai. Hello. Hey, I'll make sure they get their just due as well.
They deserve it.
Because they're going to listen to this 10 years, 20 years from now. Because we live in this new media space where their children and children's children will be listening to this interview and everything we create at this point. That's why I'm such a geek when it comes to technology and new media platforms such as podcasting, blogging, which you mentioned, which I know you have a great blog. Because what's great about this, Jeff, is the stuff that we create, the things that we're doing, the things that you're doing with 48 and 48, which we're going to get into, Dragon Army, the businesses that you're building, the articles that you're writing, the things that I'm trying to do. Our children's children will be consuming that content. And just imagine, you mentioned having an outsized impact on the world. This is the type of economy that we're in now, the type of content we're creating that could even add to that. So this is just fascinating.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I love it. And thanks for the chance to talk about this stuff. One thing I've learned is through just blogging, I've been able to change the way some readers, a lot of them are friends, but think about their lives. And then they have conversations with me when we get together about, hey, talk to me about your purpose and how did you find it? And then helping them. And gosh, if I could help a couple of people find their purpose, God, that would be just awesome.
That would be definitely awesome. So just going back to Dragon Army quickly. So how many employees do you currently have at your company?
Yeah, we're around 45.
Okay, 45. And clients, you say you work with, is these small businesses or mid-size or what type of companies do you primarily work with?
We mostly work with large corporations, and Atlanta is a great place for that. So we work with Turner and Honey Baked Ham and Coca-Cola and Equifax and Home Depot. So we mostly are enterprise scale.
Yeah, those are pretty big companies, I must say. That's really awesome. And one of them is my old former company, Turner. So that's always good.
There you go.
Always good to hear that. So Dragon Army, 45 employees. You guys are really changing the game when it comes to helping companies really adapt to new technologies, especially this mobile first, digital first, mobile first world, Web 2.5, 3.0, as I call it, which is really great. And you also started to get into more of the nonprofit space. I want to talk about this new organization, 48 and 48, but quickly, as far as volunteer work and having that outsized positive impact, Jeff, you mentioned you like working with other nonprofit companies. You're on a couple of boards, I believe, as well. So can you just talk a little bit or name some of the other entities that you are helping to create more impact in the world as far as being a board chair or a member or just volunteer?
Yeah, I can give you a couple examples. So I am the board chair of Central Outreach and Advocacy Center, which is an organization, small nonprofit in Atlanta that focuses on helping individuals experiencing homelessness. And that's an area that I'm extremely passionate about. And so being the board chair, again, thinking to outsize, allows me to, and my big focus working with their executive director, who's just amazing, and I love working with her, is to help her think more like an entrepreneur, because the more successful she can be running this organization, the more the world is a better place, right? So that's one example. And then, of course, 48 and 48, which we'll get to, but being the board chair there and helping that organization think big and think, how can we really make an impact, not just in Atlanta, not just in the United States, but globally, helping thousands and thousands of other nonprofits achieve their mission, which is really what drives 48 and 48. So again, I spent time in my earlier days just sitting on boards and showing up to the meetings, and that's, writing a check, and that's not outsized, and that's not using my gifts. And so now I pivot to thinking about how can I take, the things that I can do and really make an impact that ends up touching people's lives and improving lives. So that's sort of how I think when I look at nonprofits.
That is really a great lens to look through. And I think you mentioned it's a Central Outreach and Advocacy Center.
That's correct. Yep.
That is really awesome. So speaking of outsides and other entities, so let's talk about 48 and 48. Well, I'm sure a lot of people may be familiar with Dragon Army as far as the agency and the innovation things that you guys are doing. But this 48 and 48 initiative, can you unpack that a little more as far as why you decided to launch this initiative and what exactly the premise is?
You bet. So I had now I'm 20 years having some sort of marketing digital agency company that I was running. I've always had terrific team members who, whenever I would bring a nonprofit or a charitable experience to the business, just people would line up. They loved doing it, very passionate. We'd go wrap presents for kids during the holidays and feed the homeless and things. But what I kept seeing being on these nonprofit boards was these nonprofits could really use the skills that my team members had more so than just their hands, right?
Right.
But there's not a great mechanism to bring those two things together. So I actually tried multiple things before I landed on 48 and 48, trying to solve that problem. How do you get experts in digital marketing and branding and creative connected to nonprofits that could use that experience in a meaningful way for both parties? And after several years of trying a couple different things, I finally landed on this idea of building websites for them. And I first started with, what if I put together 3 or 4 people and said, hey, you're a team and you're going to help build, Central Outreach and Advocacy's website. And maybe it's a 6-month project, working nights and weekends. And I just was like, man, that'll fall apart throughout the process. And what if you could do it in a weekend and build it on something like WordPress, where you could teach the nonprofit how to update it? And then once I got my head around, I think you could get 2 or 3 people and build one website. Then I said, if you could do that, you could get 6 people and build 2 websites. And I kept doing that math until it seemed insane, which was about 50 in a 2-day period. And then because I'm a marketer, I thought 48 and 48 sounded a lot better.
Oh, yes, it does.
And I grabbed one of my good friends to be my co-founder, Adam Walker, who runs a website agency, and they focus on WordPress. Okay. And so together, he and I in 2015 said, let's try to do an event. And it was really like, let's just do one event in Atlanta. And we did it, and a couple hundred people showed up, and we got the websites done. And after that, that's again going back to my purpose. And I'm like, okay, we did it once. If we can do it, then we can do it more. So we did it in New York and Atlanta the next year to see if we could scale the thing and actually do it in a city where we didn't have a lot of connections. And that went well. So 2016 was New York and Atlanta. And then we just said, all right, we're going for it. So last year, 2017, we did Atlanta, New York, Boston, and Minneapolis. And then this year in 2018, we've already done Raleigh, Durham, Boston, and Bloomington, Illinois. And then later this year, we'll do New York, Atlanta, and London.
Wow,
so
London.
48 and 48 is a 501c3 nonprofit. There's 4 staff members. I am now chair of the board. I run the board meetings, but I also really try to push the team on thinking big. I try to open up some of my client relationships, but it's a running nonprofit. So at each event, we get a couple hundred people to come and build the websites for their local community. And it's just incredibly rewarding. And it's the volunteers that from that first event, when we saw, let's call it 150 people come to Ponce City Market and work all weekend and just be pumped at the end of it and excited and asking us if we're going to do it again. That's when I was like, man, there's something here that helps other people give their skills to help the world and make it a better place. And it would be a shame if we didn't push this to its limits. And so the goal now is by 2025, the year 2025, I want to have 48 of these events running on the same weekend around the globe.
Wow.
So that's the goal.
2025, 48 same weekend around the globe. That's a pretty lofty goal, but I'm sure you can achieve it. That's really great. I'm just thinking about the attraction you've already established. So just 2 years ago, just 2 cities, locations, and then you added Boston, Minneapolis, I believe you said, in North Carolina, Boston, Bloomington, London. Wow. So let me just make sure I understand how do you, I guess, garner the participants in each city? Do you do some sort of posting, or how do you get people to come out and to get developers to volunteer their time?
Well, the interesting thing is the hardest thing so there's 3 groups that come together for 48 and 48.
Okay.
There's the volunteers,
right?
There's the nonprofits, and then there's the dollars. There's the sponsors. The easiest part of all that is the sponsors. And it's not super easy, but it's easier than the other 2. And by far the hardest is getting enough nonprofits to apply.
Got it.
And the reason that shouldn't make sense is because each of these cities we go to have thousands and thousands of nonprofits.
Right.
I mean, we're talking about like Atlanta. This will be the 4th year we've done Atlanta, and we're not even close to, touching all the nonprofits in Atlanta. We can just keep going. Mm-hmm. And so the trick is really getting in front of those communities. So on the volunteer side, we make relationships with agencies. We go to if there's an AMA type event or there's a coding camp or things, we try really hard to get in front of those groups. Mm-hmm. For the nonprofits, we try to connect with the United Ways of the World, the community foundations in these cities. We go to events where there's nonprofits participating. We've got marketing automation tools to try to get in front of them. So it takes a lot. And the idea is once you build momentum in a city, it gets easier and easier to pull off.
Right. That is really great. I was just thinking, I know the nonprofit space, I know a lot of times you have great missions, you have great people, but a lot of times the digital acumen and skill sets to really just be able to create and deliver on your mission, sometimes you need more resources. So this is really great that you guys are doing that, because you can have a great story, a great mission, a great people, great volunteers. But if you can create more impact with a website or a tool that allows you to amplify that message better, then the work that you're doing with this, it really needs to be commended.
I appreciate that. Thanks. Yeah, that's definitely the view that we take. On
staying on this purpose theme, and I think about my purpose, which is really to helping people in my generation, our generation, Gen Xers, especially Gen X professionals, create more impact at work, in the workplace, in business, and in life, because it maps to my vision, which I define a little differently. Like, my vision is to literally transform and change the brand and perception of Gen Xers, which basically, we are sometimes looked upon as that overlooked generation, which is okay. But right now we are in the power phase of our lives where there's a lot of great impact that we could do on the world, and also for the next generations, because I do believe that all generations have their virtues. And that's my vision, to change that perception. But my mission is to help maximize impact. I do want to talk to you because you are definitely a Gen Exceptional, as I call it, leader, entrepreneur, philanthropist, just really purpose-driven Gen Xer. Can you just chat in more details and give some insights and tips to our audience about leadership, personal development, specifically on starting and managing a business? Because a lot of times people think that companies are primarily started, or successful companies are primarily started by millennials, which a lot of them are. However, actually some of the recent data has shown that successful, long-standing companies actually are started and managed primarily by the Gen X generation. And so I think it would be great for our audience for you to share some thoughts and ideas on, if you're someone in that mid-career phase that you either work for a company or you're starting or managing a business, what tips can you give our audience to really be able to manage it effectively as a Gen Xer?
Oh, that's a great question. So, I think, first of all, time, sort of how you spend your time and what you focus on is one of the most important things that anyone, but certainly someone in our, sort of at our stage of life, because you've got lots of different things pulling from you. And the answer, is not, to me, well, work nights and weekends and work every waking hour. I don't think it has to be that, but I do think you have to really optimize your time if you want to be successful at anything. And again, with Gen Xers, you've likely got families and you've got commitments, and so you have to be very smart about what you say yes to. I recently wrote a blog post on my blog that was it was hell yes or no. And it's a phrase that I heard from somebody else where, like, if you're deciding what you're going to spend your time on, it either needs to be a hell yes, like, absolutely, this checks all the boxes, let's go for it, or it needs to be a no.
Right, right.
So I think, like, starting with time management and really focusing on your time, and then focusing on your goal. I'm a big believer in what gets measured gets done. So if you have a goal, or if you don't, you need to isolate that and figure out, what is it I'm trying to achieve? If you're trying to start a business, what are the metrics you need? If you're a leader at a company, and then focusing on that and really going after it, to me is how you have success. And again, it's different when you're 21 years old and you can live with your mom and you can eat ramen noodles and just outwork everybody,
right.
which I did once.
All of us did.
Yeah. But now it's great because, to your point, we have experience. We're in sort of the prime of our lives. We've got relationships. We've networked. That's another thing I tell a lot of folks is, like, build your network and cultivate it. And it's how you and I got connected, right? I wouldn't have met you otherwise if I hadn't built my network and we knew the same person. So there's just so many things we have to our advantage that if you can focus and really laser in on how you're spending your time, I think you're going to have a great deal of success.
Those are some great insights and nuggets. So focus on spending your time, because to your point, a lot of us who are Gen Xers, and we are that sandwich generation where we are definitely taking care of our 1 or 2 or 5, in your case, kids. We have a family, or we have a job that we're trying to hold down, or a business we're trying to start. Some of us have elderly parents. Some of us just have all these things that are just coming at us. But to your point, if you don't have a plan, if you're not focused, it could not be as beneficial as it could be, which I love those nuggets. And for me, that's one of the things and challenges that I've had to face in the past. And sometimes I still do face those challenges. I'm definitely not perfect. Is that, you want to create a movement, you want to create a business, you want to create something of value. But at the same time, you have to look at what's most important to you and make sure that you have a plan, because to you, like similar to you, I mean, my most important assets close to me are my family. And the reason I do what I do is for them, because I want to leave a legacy, because I want to make a bigger impact in the world, because without their support, I couldn't do this. I'm sure the same for you. And so a lot of people that are in our generation are struggling with that. But then I love the fact that you did say, we have experience, we have insights, we are in this prime phase of our lives. We can become better leaders. And so I think this is a really great initiative that you're doing. And just thinking about, like, your company, Dragon Army, and even your company with 48 and 48, you manage employees, and there are a lot of people that are listening in who, let's say they're not necessarily an entrepreneur, or they are, but they have employees, or they work for a company and they're a leader, and they have employees that may be millennials, or even now Gen Zs are entering the workforce. So we're in this multi-generational workforce. What type of advice, Jeff, could you give from a leadership perspective of navigating different personalities, millennials? Because I assume when it comes to your agency, you have a lot of millennials working for you, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And so
absolutely.
What type of advice would you give that Gen X leader to making sure that you are able to optimize the most from that millennial employee, at the same time being an inspirational and empowering leader?
Yeah, that's absolutely a great focus area. So first of all, I think open and honest conversation is key. The more you can, if you're a leader and you have a team under you, I think oversharing. Like, to me, we have open book management at Dragon Army where everybody sees our numbers. The only thing they don't see is what individuals make salary wise, but they see every line item, including total salary, benefits, all that stuff's in a live dashboard for them. And what that does is it changes the way we talk, and there's nothing hidden, and they can see what profit we make. And so there's not guessing around where the company's headed, how the company's doing. And I've found, especially, with millennials, is the more you can share, the more you empower them to help contribute to fixing problems and to solving new challenges. And then you're able to leverage the skills that they have. If you just say, hey, this is your role and keep your head down, you're limiting your team members into how they can affect the business. So open communication and talking more than emailing or slacking or texting. Like, I think conversations, I continue to learn that are huge, especially again with our generation. And then the other thing I would say is just like as you start to get into your late 30s, early 40s, I think people want to be working on things that inspire them or that they're passionate about. They want to feel good about the work that they're doing, and they want to feel like they're contributing to the company or their team. And the more you can help align people with their expertise and their passion to let them succeed, the better off everybody's going to be. So I find that has helped at Dragon Army is letting people explore and try new things so that they can land in a place that they're really excited about, and they're going to be excited to give their all towards. It helps them, it helps the company, and it helps you as a leader.
Wow, that's great advice. And I'm sure you've encountered a lot of interactions with having millennials and younger people in your company that are helping you, create change and work on these new technologies. And I love the fact that you focused on that open communication policy and just allowing people to kind of see behind the inner workings of what you guys do, and also empowering them. And I love the fact that you did mention, hey, you employee number whatever, just don't look down and do your work. You do want to get the most out of them. And I do agree with you. I've managed many millennials in my day, and I do notice that they are driven from mission aligned initiatives, and they want to be heard. They want to feel empowered. They want feedback. And I love that, because one of the things that I always champion when it comes to doing what I do and focusing what I focus on with respect to generations in the workplace is I'm never the one to belittle other generations. And there are a lot of chatter when it comes to generational conversation about, well, these millennials are this and they're bad and the boomers are this. And you would never hear me say that, because my mission isn't to belittle them, because every generation, again, have their virtues. But my mission is to amplify and build up Gen Xers. So it's you can build up without tearing down. And if you are a leader in a company like you are, with multiple companies, it's definitely important that you look at your human capital and empower them the best way you can. So I really enjoy and appreciate, Jeff, you mentioning these tactics and these strategies, and just not even tactics and strategies, but just what you want to do, making sure people feel good about the work that they do. I think Dragon Army, being a company built on purpose, helps with that. And so your blog, you mentioned your blog, and I'm sure you write your blog for not just anybody, that you have specific targets. I'm assuming people in your office read your blog, your family. And so I'm sure that the work that you're doing outside of the CEO hat of Dragon Army, like on your blog, is also helping to cultivate that empowerment, right?
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. I do. Yes, absolutely. Like, I feel like, again, that outsized positive impact, if I can reach people through my blog, and that could be team members, it could be new team members, it could just be anybody. I have had people reach back and say, gosh, I read this post of yours 6 months ago, and it was just at the right time, and it helped me realize, gosh, I should be doing this or thinking about things this way. And now they're on a better track. Like, absolutely, it falls right into my purpose. And then the other thing I'll add is with Dragon Army, because so our purpose at Dragon Army is to inspire happiness.
Okay.
And we think about that through three lenses: positive relationships, impactful work, and doing good. But the place we start with our team members is helping them identify their purpose, and then help them live that through what Dragon Army can provide. Okay. So I found just helping somebody laser in on what is their purpose, what is their mission, why are they here, that can change people's lives. And so I think that's right in alignment with what you just said. And I think it's something that I wish everybody could go through, is really identify that purpose for them individually.
Love it. So you had your purpose. So Dragon Army's purpose, you said, is to inspire happiness.
Yep.
Love
that's
it.
Right.
Positive relationships, impacting work, and doing good.
You got it.
Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. We're going to pick your brain a little more. This is the latter part of the conversation, and a question that I ask every guest, and it's a little fun question, and I want to see if you're ready.
Let's do it.
All right. So Jeff, if there was a song that would play every time you enter a room or when you walk down the street that perfectly matches your story and the brand of Jeff Hilimire, what song would that be? What would be your own personal theme song?
This is a little bit of a layup for me, because my blog is named Begin the Begin, and that's an REM song.
Oh.
So first of all, fantastic song and gets me pumped up and stuff. But what I love about it is the sentiment of begin the begin. Take action. Start the start. Get yourself moving. I think a lot of people live their lives regretting not making decisions, regretting not taking that step. Really kind of living in this, I'm stuck or I can't. You can. And so to me, begin the begin sort of just identifies with me so perfectly. And it's an REM song, which is my favorite band. So yeah, that was an easy one for me.
I love it. Wow. Begin the begins. And now I have to go check that out on Spotify or Apple Music. So take action, start the start, get yourself moving. That is so critical. That's why I love this question, because not only it unpacks kind of the personal brand, being a marketer, and I just love and I'm a music junkie as well, but also it's great advice because it's so aligned to what you said, to your purpose. And it's so aligned with where I feel this generation really needs to embrace, is because no matter where you are in this day and age, if you're a Gen Xer, you're a boomer or millennial, you're 40s, especially Gen Xers, you still have a lot of time, and we're living longer. Technology. I mean, I just celebrated a birthday a week ago, but at the time of this recording, I just turned 47. And I'm proud to say that. I mean, now, years ago, when I turned 40, I was a little... But honestly, I'm proud. I'm a proud Gen Xer, and I feel that I'm just getting started. And a lot of us are. And so no matter where you are in your life, if you are at work and you're trying to advance from mid-career, lower career, in the upper echelons of management, if you want to start a business, if you want to start financial planning for your family, if you want to start thinking about your future, because all of these are all important things that we do need to think about as Gen Xers. Just creating a better life for ourselves, for our families, and our legacies. And whatever you want to do, start the start, begin the begin, no matter how big or how small, just take action. So I love the fact that your song also is so congruent with one of the main principles that I feel that Gen Xers just need to hear, because a lot of times they may hear, well, it's late, I'm having this midlife crisis, or I don't know what I'm going to do. The younger generations are coming in, and I feel there's so many things that I want to do, but I can't, and I have kids. And look, just as Jeff mentioned earlier, if you have a lot of responsibilities, just balance them, take the time, figure out what is it you want, and just really just sit down and have a plan, take action, really think about the purpose and the things that you want to leave in life. So I love that question. I love REM, and I love, I gotta check out that song.
Awesome. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
So, Jeff, this was great, man. I really enjoyed this conversation. You are doing some amazing things, and this podcast, part of my platform, which is podcast, allows me to do is to meet exceptional Gen Xers, thought leaders, people like yourself who are not only just doing things on a small scale, but as you quoted, really looking to do outsized things in the world. And I really appreciate what you're doing, not only in this community, but the communities abroad, and soon 48 communities all over the world. I learn a lot from you. I'm empowered by you, and from marketer to marketer, from Gen Xer to Gen Xer, you really inspired a lot of people during this conversation. Can you tell everyone, the audience, how they can keep up with you? What's the best way they can see what's going on in your world and how all the things that you're doing?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and I just want to say too, ever since we got connected, I've been certainly inspired by you, and I've gone back and listened to a lot of your podcasts, and I'm so glad you're doing this. And so I would just say, please keep it up. I love it. And thank you so much for having me on this. So yes, people can keep up with me on my blog. That's the easiest way. It's jeffhilimire.com, Hilimire. And I share quite a bit there. And then Twitter's probably just as easy. So at Jeff Hilimire. So yeah, that'd be it.
All right, everyone, you heard that. Go check him out, read his blogs. You can get to really understand what he's about, his company, his purpose, his family. Really great stuff. Jeff, it's been awesome. Thanks so much for spending time with me and our Gen X Amplified audience.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you so much, Jeff Hilimire, for that awesome and great chat. CEO and co-founder of Dragon Army and the co-founder of the nonprofit 48 in 48. So as always, my audience, I want to thank you for your time and for listening to the podcast. Now, don't forget to go over to genxamplified.com to get the full show notes with the links to the resources that were mentioned in this episode, including the link to hear Jeff's personal theme song titled Begin the Begin by REM. Now, you can also listen on the go and find Gen X Amplified on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts on your mobile device. And again, I'm Adrion Porter, and you've been listening to Gen X Amplified, the podcast dedicated to inspire and empower you to maximize your impact at work, in business, and in life. Remember, it's more than a podcast, it's a movement.